Hi folks, you're with Tass today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the so-called skills shortage in the West, which apparently only happens in the West. The alleged skills shortage that the globalist media keep screaming about, and then the Western governments, all of which again are controlled by the globalists. The response to these skill shortages in identifying what sort of skills are supposedly needed in terms of the immigration intake. So now in some countries, they've set up what are called skills commissions. And these commissions that are stacked with flunkies and stooges and various losers, by the way, but nonetheless, these commissions are supposed to advise on what skills, which skill shortages exist in the economy, and therefore how to set and calibrate the migrant intake to ensure, or allegedly ensure, that those skills are imported and that the immigrants have skills that are relevant. At least that's the story they tell us. Now, it's another one of the absolutely outrageous lies that we get told by the globalist controlled media and our globalist controlled governments over and over. And Australia is no different. We're supposedly here the economy is drastically short of nurses. Now, that drastic shortage of nurses has been going on for over 20 years, so longer than 20 years. So if there is a shortage of nurses, and I'm not saying there is or isn't, but if there is, then there's been ample opportunity to address that balance by offering more training places for nurses and to improve pay and conditions, and that would attract more people. But that seems to be something that the various state, regional, and federal governments really don't want to do. They've had ample opportunity over decades to do something about it, and for some reason haven't. Now, when I go into a hospital or a medical centre type setting today in Australia, you're lucky. In some medical centres, there is not the only people that may be white are the people on the reception desk, and even that's rare now. That's only in far outer suburban areas of say Sydney. Anything in a city or anything like that, you're lucky to see a single white person, whether as a doctor, whether as a nurse, whether as an administrative person. So now, if looking in, say, a hospital ward and that sort of thing, again, you're rarely going to see a white nurse. You may see that are there who are not white, have minimal English, and you would struggle to make yourself understood to these people. So somebody has to be there that does speak English. Now, the proportion of patients, particularly in the wards, not necessarily in the emergency departments, they're overwhelmingly non-white, but in the wards, they're still white and English speaking. One ward that I was in, for example, I was visiting somebody. Everybody was white except for one guy who I think was Indonesian, maybe Malaysian, that spoke Bahasa, which is like the Malay-Indonesian language, and but I couldn't pick the accent from where he was from. But otherwise, everyone else was English-speaking white. So again, they've had plenty of time to address this problem of shortage, if indeed there even is a shortage. But they've had plenty of time to address it, but have chosen not to. So the white Western governments are choosing not to address the issue, and instead choosing to leave it as a problem and then say, well, there's nothing we can do. We have to import black and brown people to do the job. Now, something I've mentioned before in other videos that in some of in the private hospital sector, which has quite a higher standard than the government hospital sector, nearly all the nurses are white in these hospitals. Now, why is that? Well, That's because the nurses have a strictly pass or fail exam. It has nothing to do with affirmative action or racism or anything like that. It's pass or fail, and you've got a written oral test, and then you've got a prac test where you have to show that you know what you're doing. And just talking to the head of one of these hospitals, and she was saying that it's so rare that a third world trained nurse it makes the grade. Sometimes they're falling so far short that you wouldn't, you'd barely give them an interview to begin with. And it surprised her that these people quite quickly got jobs in the government hospital sector, where the standards must be very much lower, or the person went away and did a lot of extra study. Now, the reason they want to work in the private hospital sector is because it pays better, better conditions, and, and you're working with better people and that sort of thing, better quality equipment and the like. So that's why people want to work there. But it's nearly all white nurses. You might get male nurses, to do some of the heavy lifting of the older patients, for example. You might get that. They may be third world, but hardly anyone else. Whereas, you go into the government hospital and you're lucky to deal with anybody who's not from the third world. So indicating the lower standards and dealing with some of the, on behalf of relatives and dealing with some of the administration people. Very few of them speak good English, and they're absolutely outrageously lazy and incompetent. So it's not a good thing. The white nurses and the white administrative people take their jobs much more seriously and much more efficient. But it seems they're not wanted now. So, but anyway, coming back to these skills commissions, the other thing they're claiming there's a shortage of is teachers, and that's code speak. There aren't enough third world black and brown teachers being put into the school system, and engineers. And again, that's an absolute fucking load of bullshit. They're just trying to depress the salaries of engineers and nothing more. So, but let's have a look at the people on here. Maybe these people are like really, the people in these commissions, the ones that are deciding where the skill shortages are. Maybe they're really thorough. Maybe they're statisticians of the highest order. Maybe they're smart, gifted people that are giving governments, good quality advice about the needed skills to help the economy grow, which is the propaganda line. So one of these commissions, I thought, well, I'll take a look. Let's have a look at the people. Now, there's the people at the top, the executive directors, they're all just political hacks, goons and flunkies. They're just being awarded, cozy gigs because they performed some imaginary service in the past and have expressed loyalty to the right, political patron, that sort of thing. But they're also surrounded by an army of consultants. And these these consultants, I don't reckon they know. Well, they've never had a job in their lives themselves, so I don't know what possibly value they can add. But it's here's one who's been nearly all women, many of them lesbians, by the way. They've worked sort of in administrative roles in the tertiary education sector, some in the high school. So they've been out of they're part of the education sector, and they're players in the union, teachers unions, that sort of thing. Again, a lot of lesbians in this. One's been a cultural enrichment consultant for years. Another one's been diversity and equity consultant. Another one's been an empowerment of women consultant. I mean, you get the idea. So these are the sort of people that are in these committees, and these are the sort of people that are saying, we just don't have enough people locally. We can't train them. We have to tick up the mass migration to be even more mass migration and get more brown and black people coming into the West, which just is incredible. This happens to coincide perfectly with the globalist project. I mean, wow, I'm sure it's just a coincidence. So that's it. So those are sort of people around that, but that indicates to you the conga line of deception, lies, and propaganda that surrounds this whole thing. But it is concerning that local nurses who are of a much higher quality, I'm sure there'll be some that aren't, but generally, certainly by my experience, of a much higher quality than the imports from the third world, and yet we're not prepared to improve working conditions and pay and the like, to allow them to encourage people to enter the profession and easily cover whatever skill shortage may exist, assuming there even is a shortage. You've been with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.